I didn't get inheritance which was in monetary value. I feel that the best inheritance that I got from her was my culture, basically. Molweni igama nguladuma wakangqokolo ifani ndilimbondo ngesiduko onyawo zothahlo ndayena usiqelekazi ongqongqosho ohlama kubethe. About 10 years after my mother's passing, I asked myself, what is the best as well dedication and actually gift that I can actually do for my late mother? And as a knitwear designer in the apartheid era, my mother was actually, she was restricted to certain opportunities to grow her career. You know, like for me, I was privileged because I grew up post-94 period, which didn't limit me in any way. I just had to work hard and actually make sure that I use the inheritance that I got from my late mother and continue to live her dream as well. When I grew up, I didn't grow up the same as the other friends that I had in my neighborhood. My mother used to read anthropology books to us, you know, whereas my friends in the morning, they used to tell us about TV program that they were watching, you know. The process, you know, like coupled together and became something which as part of my journey, I actually put it together and said that, okay, this is my ultimate inheritance which I got from my mother while growing up. Our heritage as Africans is our inheritance, and yet we overlook that, you know. So for me, you know, like I wanted to create an ideology with that and tell my story, and with my collection showcase to people that this is how I interpreted my heritage. Traditional Xhosa dress has a lot of traditional decorative techniques, like your beadwork design, the way that people dress. I found astonishing traditional Xhosa beadwork with magnificent colors. For me to get to actually explore some of those treasures was fascinating, because it's not often that I see them every day. People used to wear them every day back then, but we don't see them now. I take some of those colors in the beadwork and actually combine them into my knitwear, so that people actually will be able to recognize and say that that is definitely a Xhosa inspired design, but it's speaking a modern language that I can actually relate to. I ultimately see beadwork as paint that our people used to use to actually express themselves and reflect how they actually see the environment. The patterns and the motifs that were in the beadwork were, for instance, taken from the environment. Images, like for instance, a zigzag would be in the interpretation of the rivers that flow in the Transkei. For instance, people looked at birds that fly around and actually make chevron motifs out of that. When I did my research on traditional Xhosa colors, I found out that certain colors were used for certain symbolism. Like for instance, white. The color white in the Xhosa culture symbolizes purity. It symbolizes spirituality and cleanness. People they use the color and the beadwork to actually showcase their social status in the society. I use a lot of orange in my collection. I think it's a color which is beautiful and that carries a lot of energy, and I often see it as something which actually, although it's only a color, it actually defines the heritage and makes it distinctive from the other cultures. I celebrate my Xhosa tradition in my work as well by, for instance, when I make up a design, I actually give it a Xhosa name, which sort of reflects a feeling that I got when I developed that particular design. Like, for instance, there's a pattern which sort of looks like people holding hands together, and I call that pattern Ubuntu because it sort of resembles that gesture of people holding hands together. And Ubuntu is one of the most profound philosophy of the Xhosa people, that people should treat one another in a respectful way. For me as well, I think the fact that those philosophies are actually not documented, as the youth, we actually have to research and actually document all of those philosophies in various ways. I choose to do it with my fashion, of which is quite a dominant way to actually go about it. Some people actually said that the Zulu will not like your work, they will not like your brand because it says Maxhosa. I said, you're wrong. At the end of the day, it's about the aesthetic, it's about the brand, it's about culture, which we actually relate to as Africans. And still today, I get a lot of messages from Durban, from young Zulu boys who say that I would love to one day own and wear your knitwear, and we love what you do. We love the fact that you are actually preserving culture. Although it's not my culture, I feel part of it. Cape Town and Paris was one of the cities that my late mother used to mention a lot. She wanted us to live in Cape Town because it has a lot of infrastructure. The art that is here, the design industry which is here is better than back home. I got invited to showcase my 2013 collection, My Heritage, My Inheritance, first in Cape Town at the Design Indaba fashion show, and then afterwards, later during the year, I showcased it in Paris. She envisioned myself and my siblings being successful at whichever discipline that we choose. We have something to actually carry as the youth for the future generation, so that when they trace their history and be able to find where they began as the people, because I believe that no one actually establishes from nowhere. We all have roots that we started from.